Welcome to episode 2 of my PowerShell Crash Course series. Today, we will journey down the flowery scenic road of script writing, expanding on the pipeline, and going over the basics of flow control. All the scripts you see in today's episode will be down in the description below, so feel free to download them. But before we actually get into writing scripts, let's talk about the pipeline briefly. As you learned last episode, commands can be linked together with the pipe operator. This just allows us to link the output of one command with the input of another. This process often maps inputs and outputs automatically, but piping may not work as expected for some commands and some inputs. For example, some commands allow strings to be piped directly into them. Others do not. This is because pipeline input can be matched to parameters in one of two ways. By value, which is dependent on the type of object being passed by the pipeline, or by property name, which is dependent on receiving an object with a property of the same name. Parameters that accept pipeline input are set to be one of these two, and normally we're able to see which a parameter is set to using the help command. Unfortunately, there's a bug with the help command right now that is still unfixed 8 months after it was reported, but what we can do instead is list the individual attributes of a given parameter in a command using something like this. Here we can see the parameter name for get service. It accepts values from pipelines and accepts value from pipeline by property name. There are a number of other useful commands we can use alongside piping to help better filter the results of a pipeline. For example, where object allows us to filter by a condition. Select object allows us to select for a specific property or otherwise limit results. Sort object allows us to sort by a property. For each object allows us to do something for each item. And group object allows us to group by a selected property. These are often paired with comparison operators, which we went over a little bit last episode. Comparison operators are a little bit quirky in PowerShell compared to what they normally look like in other languages. Of course, we have greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to, or contains. And there are a bunch of other ones that we won't go over for the sake of time. Now, that was a lot of information, so let's see an example of all of these principles put together. Let's say we want a list of all services that are currently stopped. Here, we're just using the pipeline variable to reference the last output of the pipeline, grabbing all of the services and only selecting those where the status is equal to stopped. Up to this point, we've really only been running the occasional command or one-liner. The pipeline serves as a great way to link simple commands together in a logical unit, but for anything more than a few steps, we're going to need to write scripts. Scripts are saved to external files. In Visual Studio Code, we need to create a new file and save it as a .ps1 file for it to be registered as a script. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we're going to have to double check a few settings. We should first turn on strict mode. Set strict mode version latest. This will make sure errors show up when we do something like reference an object that hasn't been defined yet or doesn't have a value. Similarly, before we can run a script, we need to make sure that our execution policy is still set to remote signed. Just like before, we're going to run Set-ExecutionPolicy, ExecutionPolicy, remote signed. Both of those being done, let's write a simple script and see if it works. Now, we can run a script just by entering its path into PowerShell. Now that we're sure everything works and have the foundations down, let's talk about some of the tools available to us for flow control. If statements are the most common form of flow control, when a condition is true, it'll execute the code within its brackets. We can also chain conditions in an if statement together with logical operators like OR, AND, XOR, or NOR. Else if statements follow an if statement or another else if statement. It just serves as another condition to check if the prior statement returns false. Else statements are used following an if or else if statement. When all other conditions in a chain of if statements are false, the else statement will execute. In this example, we're looking for the user to enter either a Y or an N, but if they enter neither, we use the else as a fallback to tell them that their input is invalid. There is another way we can prompt the user to make a selection like this, and that is with a switch statement. Switch statements execute code based on a value. Here, we prompt the user to make a selection. The switch statement will continue to evaluate even if it already returns true for one of the prior blocks. For example, if you select 1, it will run against 1 and against 2, and then against default. So, we can actually use the break keyword to exit the switch statement if we don't want it to run against each evaluation. If statements and switch statements are great if we want something to be evaluated once in the script. Very often, however, we need to either iterate through a list of items or do a task over and over again. In these cases, we use loops. Now, there are a number of different types of loops, but we'll start off with the classic. The for each loop will execute its code for each item in a list. Here we have a list of very important apps: Steam, Minecraft, Discord, and DaVinci. We tell the loop for each item inside of this list, we are going to iterate through them in order, starting with Steam, going to Minecraft, then Discord and DaVinci. And each time we go through one of these, we save it inside the app variable and then execute the block of code inside the loop before moving on to the next item. It's important to know that the for each loop will make a copy of whatever item it is looking at and stored inside the app variable at any given time. We can't actually modify values in the original array using a for each loop. If we want to make changes to an array, we'll have to use another type of loop. The for loop is used to run code a specific number of times, and we just specify those amount of times using the I variable. Here we set I equal to 0, then we set a condition for when we want I to stop, and then we tell it to add 1 at the end. Since we're dealing with the array itself with this loop, we're actually able to make changes to that array and have them be saved. In cases where we need a piece of code to continue running until a condition is met, we can use a while loop. So long as something is true, the while loop will run. In our example here, we set tick equal to 0, and while tick is less than 6, we run the block of code, where we print out tick and then add 1 to tick. The humble while loop has two sibling loops: the do while loop, which executes its code, then checks if the condition is true, and if it is, it'll run it again and check it again. It'll always execute at least once. In our example here, we write Jampo, and then add 1 to the Jampo counter, and check if the Jampo counter is less than 2, which is true. It'll go back to do, write out Jampo, add 1 to Jampo, rinse, and repeat. The other sibling loop is the do until loop, which will run until a condition is met. Similarly to do while, it'll always execute its code at least once. In our example of do until, we ask the user to answer the prompt, what is 9 plus 10? And until that choice is equal to 21, we keep asking them. But once it is, we encourage them by saying, you're stupid. With these flow control tools, we can begin to use PowerShell for long and complex scripts. Next episode, we'll go through a few examples of some longer, more complex scripts, as well as touch on functions, error handling, and maybe even get into modules. But until then, see ya.